This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a program combining the science and magic of today's leading topics to co-create new solutions and promote evolutionary thinking. We're coming to you through the leader in responsible paranormal and alternative science programming, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, and can also be found on our website, thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring the dark side of media. Increasingly, the concept that our beliefs create reality is coming into the forefront. Perception is the key to our experience. If we cannot conceive of a thing, we cannot perceive it. Through agreement and beliefs, humans actually create the world we live in. So what do we believe? Where do our concepts come from? The average adult American watches more than 5 hours of live television every day. We listen to over 4 hours of radio. Many leave the radio blaring in the background during their waking hours, turning it on with a morning coffee and not shutting it off until bedtime. Some even sleep with it running. The radio blasts in almost all cars as people commute to work. We may only be listening with half an ear, but in some instances, that's worse than giving it our full and undivided attention. At least when we're paying attention to what's being broadcast, our logical mind can choose to agree or disagree. When we're not paying attention, messages are seeping in unnoticed and taking root. What are we unwittingly feeding ourselves? Well, exactly what the media wants to create. And who controls the media? The almighty dollar. To discern who benefits, it's often said, follow the money. And this is indeed the case. Any issue can be presented with a slant that brings about the most desirable result, not even in taking into consideration subliminal messaging. The media is a very powerful and effective means of controlling belief. Whoever controls the beliefs of the majority controls manifestation. And don't think for a moment this capacity is not being exploited. Much of our power to create is bled off and repurposed while we sit drooling in front of the television, watching supposed reality TV, being told what to buy, who to vote for, and who to hate. We've become prisoners of our own need for distraction from lives of mundania. The very mundania created by the belief in our own disempowerment and victimhood. Ironically, our disempowerment is created by our programming. We're being programmed to be the automatrons of an exploitive system that has us watching one hand while the other is in our pockets. It's bad enough we're being manipulated out of our hard-earned money. What's worse, we're being used to create a living hell of illusion that has become our collective reality. The programming runs so deep, most of us would be horrified at what we've been led to create. Yet, true information is power. It's counterproductive to shut off all media and stick our head in the sand. What's the answer to this mind-boggling dilemma? Mindfulness, attention, and discernment. With the understanding that much of the programming out there is exactly that, choose carefully what you expose you and your family to. Research and find neutral, unbiased, accurate reporting from trained investigators. Avoid hype and hysteria, a sure sign an attempt is being made to hijack your emotions and your beliefs. If you can't give something your full attention, it may be best to shut it off until you can. In the absence of attention and discernment, we may unwittingly be giving our agreement to whatever is being presented. Is all media bad? By no means. But it does have a dark side. It can be a powerful exploitive force if we do not take responsibility for what we agree to manifest with our God-given power as co-creators. Our guest this hour is Canadian broadcaster Rob McConnell. Rob is General Manager and Director of International Operations of the X-Zone Radio TV with 36 years' experience in radio, television, print, and internet media. Mr. McConnell is the host and creator and executive producer of the X-Zone Radio TV show. Rob formed the X-Zone Broadcast Network to fill a void in radio programming and to allow listeners around the world to have access to the very best broadcasting without the negativity aired by other stations and networks. After this commercial break, I'll introduce Rob, and together we'll explore the dark side of media, so don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic, thescienceofmagic.net.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Mnemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created mnemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Take a step back in time and discover old Florida cuisine at Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere, Florida. Enjoy delicacies such as frog legs, gator tail, catfish, and swamp cabbage, or enjoy the more traditional cuisine such as hand-cut Angus steaks, ribs, and seafood. Join us for breakfast with a southern flair featuring sweet potato pancakes, biscuits and gravy, and much more. Planning a party? Marsh Landing's private dining rooms can accommodate groups from 8 to 80 people. While you visit, enjoy the historic pictures, artifacts, and stories that line the walls. Marsh Landing is truly a unique experience. Marsh Landing Restaurant, 44 North Broadway in historic downtown Fellsmere, or visit marshlandingrestaurant.com. Marsh Landing, Old Florida cuisine at its best.
If you're a seeker, don't miss the inspiring book Shamanic Awakening, Between the Dark and the Daylight. This remarkable work chronicles shamanic counselor and indigenously trained dream decoder Sandra Cochran's 35 years of experience with diverse wisdom keepers throughout the Americas. Sandy's initiations across the British Isles, Turkey, Greece, and Egypt, combined with her knowledge of symbology, psychology, and myth, influence her dream blog and workshops. Sandy offers private readings, sacred international journeys, a meditative CD, and her book, Shamanic Awakening, to encourage you as you navigate your earth walk and create a deeper connection to yourself. Find this and more at her website, starwalkervisions.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Never has it been more important to pay attention to what we're doing with our personal power than in these rapidly changing times. It's also important to know what's going on in the world in order to choose our place within it. Media is the most viable avenue to the information we need, yet somewhere along the line, much of the media has been hijacked and used to manipulate the public opinion rather than keep us accurately informed. With us this hour to explore this controversial topic is Canadian broadcaster Rob McConnell. Rob is General Manager and Director of International Operations at the X Zone Radio TV with 36 years' experience in radio, television, print, and internet media. He's also the host of the very popular and internationally syndicated X Zone Radio show. Mr. Rob's website is xzbn.net. Rob, thank you so much for joining us on The Science of Magic.
It's always a great pleasure talking to you, Gwilda. Thanks very much for having me on.
I'm looking forward to this. So what drew you to broadcasting in the first place, Rob?
There were three things I wanted to do as a kid, Gwilda. My parents always taught me to have goals, and this was instilled in my brother and I at a very young age. So there were three things I wanted to accomplish in my lifetime. I wanted to be in a rock and roll band. I wanted to be a policeman. My family comes from a long line of law enforcement. And I wanted to be in broadcasting because my mom did acting, and she also worked at a Montreal radio station, CKGM. And on Saturdays, Mom sometimes would take me to work, and I'd get to meet all the hosts and watch how the behind the scenes, the technical side of everything was done, and I was really interested. And then sometimes she would take me to the TV studios when she was doing her bit parts. And once again, I fell in love with the technological side. I was a cop. I did play in a very popular rock and roll band in Canada during the 60s. I played with such greats as Gordon Lightfoot. And so, I accomplished everything. And then when I was in the police force, I developed something called avascular necrosis of the femoral head. And I had a choice to make. Was I going to be a desk jockey, or was I going to go on to my next love in life? Now, while in law enforcement, I started getting interested in broadcasting. I learned how to edit videotape. Back at the time, it was a 3/4-inch cassette cartridges that were edited. And I started doing commercials, producing commercials, directing commercials on my off time in law enforcement. So when this fork in the road was presented to me by fate, it was, what am I going to do? And then I figured, let's see, I've done the music scene. I've done the law enforcement scene. Well, let's get into broadcasting and the media. And that's what I did.
Fantastic. Having been in radio and television and print media for over 36 years now, what have you seen happening to the media in recent times, Rob?
I've seen the media turn from a credible source to a money grab industry. If it bleeds, it leads, which means the worse the headline, the more attention it gets. And you can see this on network newscasting. Back when I started, there was no such thing as CNN or MSNBC or any other of the cable news networks that monopolized the news industry. It was, a lot of family shows. You had a 6 o'clock news, and you had a 12 o'clock news, and you had an 11 o'clock news. That was it. But as time progressed, it was very simple to see that the owners of the media outlets saw that programming, as you so elegantly put it in your opening segment, controls people. And then we found out that over the years, programmers and advertisers have been using subliminal messaging in not only commercials, but in the actual programming itself. And this is when I lost all faith with the established media. Now, when I left the established media, I was an executive producer of a very strong network in Ontario. We had 50,000 watt stations, a super signal, and the writing was on the wall because I was kind of a maverick. I wanted to be honest with the people. I wanted to be honest with my listeners because in my book, there's a responsibility that you carry as a broadcaster because the microphone is mightier than the sword.
Well, isn't that the truth?
Yeah. So I decided, no, I wasn't going to play their game anymore. So I decided to put my feelers out there, and I guess it was, oh my gosh, what year am I going to go back to? 1997, I think, is when I broke away and started being an independent. And within weeks of becoming an independent show, I was picked up by a U.S. network. And from there, it just went on and on and on. I could actually control my show. I had full content. It was my idea who the guests were. We didn't cater to the whims of the sales department and the advertiser. We didn't have to con the listener. We didn't have to program the listener. If the listener doesn't want to listen, they can leave. We're not going to use any tricks of the media in order to increase our ratings. And the X-Zone turned into the X-Zone Broadcast Network, all part of the media company that I own called Relmar McConnell Media Company. And the rest is history.
But Rob, in order to succeed in broadcasting, I would think you have to appeal to advertisers and therefore target their audience. How do you balance that with the need for responsible programming?
It's very simple. Just be honest.
What a concept.
Yeah, exactly. If a broadcaster cannot be honest with his listeners, then he shouldn't be in broadcasting. Because what he is doing, he is programming. And I've got a habit of challenging my guests, challenging the integrity that the guest says he's putting forth to our listeners. And you'd be surprised how many people are caught with their pants down, lying through their teeth. And that's when I go after them with a vengeance.
What's the purpose behind that? How can you tell who is legit and who isn't?
You do your homework. You find out as much as you can about the guest. The internet is a great resource. There's pros and cons put all over the internet. And even though I believe the internet is the largest septic tank that has ever been created by mankind because there's more crap on the internet than there is anything else. And it's up to you to decide using something called integrity and your brain. Now there's a concept. Whether or not the guest during the interview is being honest with me. Because if you're not being honest with me, you're not being honest with my listeners. Mm-hmm. And my listeners deserve to get the very best they can and the truth.
Mm-hmm. What influence does the media have on perceived reality of the masses? Do you think it's really that big of a deal?
Oh, big time. Big time. For example, reality TV is anything but reality TV. It is scripted up to the teeth. It's scripted to the hilt because with so many stations out there, when I started TV in Montreal, you could only get maybe 6 or 7 stations. But now there's over 365 programming changes that you have access to. So you multiply 365 by 24, and that gives you the programming hours per year the programmer has to fill. So it's come to a point where there are too many, in my opinion, too many stations that are out there accessible, and the programmer has to find programming to fill it.
Why do you think people are so into the hype and hysteria rather than realism?
Sensationalism sells. You know, for example, if you talk to credible paranormal investigators, they're going to tell you that there are times they go into an allegedly haunted institution, home, or business, and nothing happens. And yet you will never see that on TV because that doesn't hold the viewer for the 22 minutes it takes in order for the broadcaster to program you to buy some of the products that are being advertised on his station while you're watching the show.
So are you telling me that they'll actually falsify just to keep people interested?
Definitely. This is well known. There's nothing secret about that, Gwilda. I'll give you an example. We were scheduled to do a TV series with a producer out of New York. He decided that he wanted to spice it up a bit and was saying, well, come on, write in or I want some shaky camera. I want this. I want that. And I said, no. What do you mean, no? It's very simple. No, we give the viewer the truth. In fact, he wanted to do all this nighttime shooting. And I said, no, do it in the day. Well, there's no ghosts in the day. There's no this, there's no that. I said, oh, what there isn't there. You don't have the darkness. You don't have the perception. You don't have the ability to start putting the thought into the mind of the viewer. You're not being honest. You're creating a false reality. To make a long story short, we decided not to do the series with that producer. And that's not the first time I've gracefully and otherwise walked away from projects.
Gracefully and not so gracefully? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Exactly.
I've experienced that too, where they were doing a filming on me as a shaman, and they weren't happy because I wasn't twitching and drooling enough, and I went, sorry, I'm just not going there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People are not dumb, and yet, through the magic of television, we can make them believe anything we want. Television is a deceitful media. You don't always get the truth. You don't always get the actuality. You don't always get the events before and after. You get that little clip that raises tempers, that raises suspicion, that raises hate. You don't get the full story.
Yeah, that's so hugely important, isn't it?
It is. I've always believed there are 3 sides to the truth. His side, her side, and the truth. And in order to be a responsible broadcaster, you need to give your audience the ability to take his side, her side, and on their own come to the conclusion to what they believe based on the facts is the truth.
Is that why you do more interviews than just taking one side of the thing so that you have 2 sides going on there?
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean.
I'm sorry, I was saying, is that why you like to do interviews? Because you're presenting 2 sides. You're presenting the side of the person is presenting, and you're watching out for lies.
Exactly.
We're going to have to take a break, Rob. Rob and I will return to our discussion on the other side of this break, so don't go away. We're coming to you through the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Don't miss the other fine shows and hosts on xzbn.net. You're listening to The Science of Magic, your resource for creative solutions in a changing world, thescienceofmagic.net.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
There's a legend shared by many indigenous cultures of a time when the nations were cast to the four corners of the world. Each nation was given a body of sacred knowledge that held a different portion of the truth to preserve. True reality could not be known until all the nations reunited, combining the information. If a single one was missing, the world could not be reborn and darkness would prevail. The Science of Magic Radio is dedicated to reuniting the sacred knowledge. With the understanding, none of us has all the answers, but together we can open new perceptions and possibilities. Through our combined vision, the world can be reborn into a place where darkness no longer prevails. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic daily on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, or visit us at thescienceofmagic.net.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A soul balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world. Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. We cover what's hot. For in-depth exploration of leading-edge subjects from numerous authorities and viewpoints, join our email family to receive our topic-driven episode collections at thescienceofmagic.net. Our guest this hour is broadcaster Rob McConnell, General Manager and Director of International Operations at the X-Zone TV, radio, TV, and the host of a very popular internationally syndicated X-Zone radio show. Rob, I would kind of like to talk about, when I was a kid, the news was the news, and the programming was the programming. So the news wasn't used for advertising. The news was factual reporting. To the
Actually, I disagree with you there, Gwilda.
Okay.
Because the news back then was used as political advertising, political propaganda.
Ah, okay.
You see? So what we're experiencing now is the growth from political propaganda to whatever, whether it's alternative energy, whether it's the pharmaceutical industry, whether it's a weapons manufacturer, whether it's going back to the political arena. The news, even back then, was starting. And this is when people really realized that, wow, the more sensationalistic the news is, the more people that will watch it. The more ratings they get, the higher they can charge for commercial content.
It seems like it's getting more so that way. I mean, this last election was terrifying to me.
Oh my God, this was an election. It was it was a disaster. Like, CNN, the Clinton news network, they played totally against President Trump, and you could see the growth of the divide in the political arena when they were having these town hall meetings, when they would have these, what were they called? When they had all the different candidates up there.
You don't mean the debates?
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's exactly what I meant. The debates. And you could actually see the nitpicking. And then you would watch the different medias taking certain clips out of the different debates and using it to their advantage. Well, that's not how I perceive the media. The media should not be used as a way to feed the public. The media should present, as I said before, as many sides to a story and let the public make up their own mind. Like, do you remember Walter Cronkite?
Oh, yeah.
Now, there was a man.
I liked him, yeah.
There was a man who had morals, who had integrity. He was a professional. God, I remember watching the different space flights, the assassination of President Kennedy, and Cronkite. He wept during the assassination, and you don't see that today. What you see are green screen sets. You have so-called anchors who try their very best to increase the ratings for the networks by doing more sensationalism and propaganda than reporting of the news.
Rob, what does it take to be an unbiased, accurate reporter?
Honesty, integrity, professionalism. Not being afraid to report what the reality of the subject is and not what the editors and the producers and directors and advertisers want. It takes a person who can say, no, that's not the truth. And no, I'm not going to lie for you. No, I'm not going to sensationalize. I will give the listeners the truth.
But doesn't it also take a certain amount of training so that you can be an accurate observer?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It takes a person with a head on their shoulders and a person who can add 1 and 1 comes out with 2. A person who can tell if a person is lying, a person who can see and make good calls on what they're seeing, on how to report it. I'm not saying that, a person who has no interest or desire to be in the media would be able to be a successful reporter. But if you have a person who has the desire and the will and who wants to learn, they can. In fact, a lot of networks are now breaking away from hiring professional photojournalists, and they're going with the citizen reporter.
Right, and that's what I was getting at. It's like Well, let's go back to psychology class. We had a test that went on in psychology where somebody came in the middle of class and held up the professor. And then after it was over with, the professor had us each write our accounting. And there was over 125 people in the room, and there was over 125 different renditions. But the one thing they didn't catch is that the man was held up with a banana.
Yep.
So, how is it if a person isn't kind of like trained to be an observer? How do you think these people are, camera-toting citizens? How do you think that's going to improve on the accuracy of the news?
It's not. It's not going to improve at all. In fact, what we're going to see with the citizen reporter are what we saw during the Baltimore riots, during the Black Lives Matter riots, during what we've seen when they had the confrontations between the Republicans and the Democrats in the prior to the election. We're going to see the stories get more sensationalized. And by the way, the example you gave about the person holding up with the banana, we had that in the police academy.
They did that to you too.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's a conspiracy, Rob.
But Gwilda, we're seeing no matter what profession it is today, you don't have to be an expert. How many times have I had a psychic on the show? Who's as psychic as my mascot here, little Lola, my Shih Tzu that sleeps in my studio? Then you've got the people who claim.
Hey, Rob, my vote's on your Shih Tzu, by the way.
Oh, thank you, Lola. One for you, sweetie. Then you've got the people who claim that they can communicate with Edgar Cayce, or Edgar Cayce walks with them, or that they, in a previous life, they were Napoleon or Cleopatra, or that they channel John Lennon, Jesus Christ, and Lady Diana. Like, there is so much sensationalism, even when it's not the media, but they grab the media's attention because it's sensationalized. It's sensationalism. I would rather lose an advertiser than to deceive a listener.
Speaking of which, in your opinion, what responsibility do broadcasters have to their listeners in the products they advertise?
Well, let me see. If you're talking about the station manager and let's go down the line. Let's go from the station manager to the sales manager to the sales rep to the person who voices the commercial to the producer who airs it to the programmer who slots it to the secretary who works at the front desk and even the young lady that works in the commissary. They are all responsible.
Mm-hmm. What effect do you think that it's having on the information going out there that everything is being used for advertising?
It's having no effect. It's having no effect. I'm sorry. Let me try and better understand your question. Are you asking what effect does bad advertising have?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
No effect. No effect whatsoever. No effect. No effect on the listeners. No effect on the station. The station is making money. The listeners and the viewers have the option of either buying the object or not, and as long as the numbers are high and the station can report back to the advertiser what the listening or viewing audience was during that certain time, and if the advertiser makes money on it, they're all happy.
It, to me, doesn't seem overly moral.
It's not, hon. It's not. Like, I've referred to a number of the medias as brothels.
I can understand that. I mean, shouldn't there, in a perfect world, shouldn't there be a clear distinction between unbiased news reporting and advertising through the news? I mean, aren't there any regulations?
Not that are strict enough. No. This is just it. The regulatory market has changed so much over the years because of the demand of the increase in programming that the government at times has had to lax down on the advertising standards.
And yet there's other sides of the regulations that pretty much hamstring you, aren't there? I mean, aren't there these broadcasters out there that don't have to hold up to the standards you do?
Hey, anybody who does a podcast, it's an independent. That's why when people call what we do and the shows that we produce podcasts, it really upsets me.
Yeah.
Because we follow the rules and the regulations as set down by, in the United States, the FCC, and in Canada by the CRTC and the Canadian Standards Act and the Canadian Association of Broadcasters. These podcasts, number one, half the time, I'd say the majority of time, a podcast is done by someone who starts it off as a joke, a lark, and the stupider they are, the more obnoxious they are, the more idiots tune in.
Wow.
Once again, you've got the sensationalistic aspect.
Rob, why do you think people are so drawn to the sensational? When how many people really believe it?
Well, we can say how many people believe in Santa Claus Christmas Eve, how many people believe in the Easter Bunny when it comes near Easter, how many people look for leprechauns on St. Patrick's Day, how many people look for the cherub when it comes to Valentine's Day. And all these have been created by advertisers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Halloween. Halloween is the number one candy selling day in the world.
Much the teacher's demise, right?
And also, so advertising rules the world. Advertising rules the economy. Advertising is fueled by the media.
Advertising rules. That's pretty interesting, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And advertising on the internet is also part of this new paradigm that we're seeing in the media and advertising.
Is this kind of like infomercials where they're pretending to give you information, but it's a thinly veiled advertisement?
Well, an infomercial is an advertisement. That should never be... An infomercial should never be misconstrued as anything else but a longer commercial. That's all they are, because every infomercial that I have ever seen always has a product or service to buy.
Right.
So in essence, an infomercial is an information commercial. And there's the key word there, commercial. As soon as you have commercial, you have paid content.
And so that leaves you wondering how accurate is the information portion of the infomercial, right?
Well, let's see. They have been commercials on TV for, I'm just trying to think, cookingware. Do you remember the guy who used to sell the spray that you spray it on your bald spot?
We're going to have to take a break on that note. Rob and I will talk about bald spots on the other side of this commercial break, so don't leave us now. This is The Science of Magic, thescienceofmagic.net, your resource to altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric, working to create common ground for the betterment of our world. We're in this together. Your thoughts are very important. If you have any comments or topics of interest to suggest, please email me at thescienceofmagic.net. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic. We're bringing together gifted people of service to the world. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. What's up in your world? Email me at info@thescienceofmagic.net and suggest a topic that's on your mind. You're probably not the only one interested. Our guest this hour is broadcaster Rob McConnell, General Manager and Director of International Operations of the X-Zone Radio TV and the host of the very popular, internationally syndicated X-Zone radio show. Rob, you were just getting into something about bald head spray?
Yeah, there was this guy, and I can't remember his name, but he used to be a pitchman for a number of different products. And one of the products that he would
Did you know
sell
that when
or
you're
he
on the
would
road
pitch
with
was
limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still
painted
listen to the X-Zone
fabric
radio show with Rob
guck
McConnell,
that you'd
The Science
spray
of
onto
Magic
your
with Gwilda
head if you
Wiyaka,
were bald.
X-1, Dimension X,
and people were
Space
buying it
Patrol,
left, right,
and
and
every
center.
minute of the X-Zone broadcast
You
network by
see
calling
the
213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio
and the
Now.
different blender
No
commercials.
smartphone, app, or internet needed.
Sunday,
It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080
products all the
to
time.
listen on any phone, anytime,
And people
anywhere.
buy it. That's what I can't
Remember,
understand. I mean, not only do they buy the thing, they buy the issue. They buy the
213-0080 for the
information.
best
That's
of
right.
paranormal,
And information is
parapsychology,
power.
and
And
sci-fi
no matter what
radio
the information
programming
is,
anywhere.
you can actually
24/7,
tailor it
365.
to become from information into an infomercial. And this goes back to the very beginning of
I am Dr. Carl
time when we
O'Helvey,
first started
founder
writing,
president
and we first
of a new
started,
Cancer Foundation,
telling
focusing on
stories,
evidence-based
one person to the
physical,
next.
mental,
So when we
and
actually look
spiritual
at where the
interventions,
fake
including
news
natural cancer
started or
cures,
propaganda
prayer,
started, we have to look
meditation,
at the
affirmation,
Egyptian scribes.
nutrition,
We have to
and
look
other
at
related
the people
holistic
who
cancer
were putting the
prevention
Bible
and
together,
cure
as well as other
modalities.
religious philosophies,
These are
because
used
what
in
they
cancer
wanted to do
education,
is
research,
get
and
people
financing
to be
care.
part of
I
their
ask for
religious
your help to
organization.
continue this important work
Once again,
by
control the masses
donating
through
at
false information.
Exactly. And we see the
holisticcancerfoundation.com.
same thing today with the Vatican. We see the same thing today with other organizations that are out there. ISIS. I hate to use that as an example.
Well, it's
But-
a good one, though.
But every
Love to
time the
know
media does a
secret
story
to
on ISIS,
everything. I'm Dr.
they're
Kimberly
always
McGeorge,
opening up the
and on
eyes
the
to someone
secret
who
to
is
everything,
trying
we will
to
merge the
look for a
practical
cause that
with
they can
open
be part of that
investigation
will give
into
them
all
that
realms
5
of the
minutes of fame
mysterious.
that
We
they're
will talk
seeking.
to cutting-edge alternative health
Yeah, even if it means blowing
practitioners,
themselves up to
those
get it.
who
It's scary.
inspire
You know,
and
this,
motivate you in
this brings me
business
to
and
another
life.
thing that you
Sure.
brought up
And of
earlier that I'd
course,
like to
we
get
will
into.
share stories
Tell me
of the
what you know
paranormal,
about subliminal
conspiracy,
programming.
and cryptozoology.
I can't tell you.
You will transform because of the
I forgot.
frequency I
It
carry,
was
the
programmed to
frequencies
forget.
my guests
All right.
carry.
Subliminal
Life may
advertising
never
and
be the
programming is
same
very
after
simple.
you listen to this program.
Advertisers
for the secret
found
to everything
out
is
years
for you,
ago
the listener,
that if you
for those
put
who
in
desire
a
more in every
picture,
area of their lives and
now
believe
this is going
that
back
it can
when
still
it
be
was filmed so
found.
that you could actually
Listen
put
and
in a
discover
frame
the secret
that
to
while the frame
everything.com.
is going at a certain speed, that picture will not be seen on the screen, but your eye will pick it up and your mind
Little
will see it.
children aren't the only ones
will
afraid of the
recognize
dark.
it. So if
Millions
you're
of
sitting there
soldiers
watching a
return from
movie
war zones
and
with
they
PTSD,
wanted you to
anger,
buy, let's
frustration,
say,
fear, and loneliness,
more
much of
candies
which
in
surfaces
the-
during
in
the
the-
darkness of the night.
in the
You
lobby
have the
or
chance
buy
to
some
change
sort
the
of
lives
soup
of
or
these
whatever the
American
case is.
heroes. Songs
Based
and
on the
Stories for
programming you're getting
Soldiers.us
during that movie.
provides free MP3
You are more
players
likely to
for
buy
these men
product
and women.
A than product
With
B.
a list of 3 million songs in 16
And
different styles,
this has been found out to be
100,000
happening
audiobooks, and
today
30,000
on the
old-time radio
internet,
programs,
in
every
videos,
veteran can find something to soothe and
on
comfort
TV,
them at no cost. All
where
our players contain an
unscrupulous
8-hour audio program
producers,
designed to help
unscrupulous
veterans fall
advertisers,
asleep. With
unscrupulous
1,500 plus
networks
vets
are
now
still using
participating, it's
subliminal
our goal to
messaging.
deliver
Is there
10,000
proof that
audio
they're doing
players
this?
this
Oh,
year.
gosh, it is.
Go to our
And there's no
website
regulations
at
against it.
Songs and Stories
The
for
regulations
Soldiers.us.
aren't as hard
Help us
fixed
help a veteran
as
make
they
it through the
should be.
night.
There are ways around it. You know, it's just like these chemists who invent designer drugs. What they do is they find out what meets the legal limits, what is illegal, and they design something around it. Just like President Trump is doing right now with his new travel ban executive order. He knows what the courts will not allow. So now he can design, and what I think he did was brilliant. I'd just like to go on a little tangent here, because what he did was he gave the courts something that I believe he knew they would shoot down in order to find out what they couldn't do based on the Constitution.
I can see that.
So
yeah.
now he gets all the information he needs, writes up something that the judges have already said in an order will meet the criteria.
Wow.
You know, so this would work the same way with subliminal advertising and subliminal messaging. Do you remember the cassette tapes that you could buy?
Oh, yes.
And you'd go to sleep listening to them?
Mm-hmm.
That's subliminal.
Right. Right.
You know,
the
so
fat is melting. The fat is melting. All behind Pocketville's cannon, right?
Exactly. Or the pole is brass. The pole is brass. You know, there are examples that we can go one right after the other, one right after the other. And this is why the CRTC and the FCC did something brilliant, and I commended them for this. Years ago, when Kenny Kingston, Diana Warwick, Madame Cleo were doing their psychic pitches in the wee hours of the morning when somebody could not sleep because of financial problems, love problems, or whatever, they said, no way, you can't do that because you are targeting your commercials to a person who is vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So they came up with the legal legislation that you couldn't do that anymore, and these commercials had to be pulled. Like, hooray to the FCC commissioners and the CRTC for doing something right. But
is there any way, Rob, we can tell if we're being subjected to subliminal messages?
the technology can do it. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, but as individuals just sitting there listening, we can't.
You're asking me a question that I can't give you an answer to, Gwilda. If you're a kind of person, I guess, who doesn't usually enjoy something, and you pass it, and you say, I wonder. I don't know. I can't give you an exact answer on that.
I think that was a pretty good one. It's like if you find yourself craving or wanting something that's out of character, look twice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Advertisers, not all advertisers, a lot of advertisers will sink to the lowest level in order to get their hand on your money.
Mm-hmm.
That is the truth. There are times, Gwilda, when we have been approached at Relmar or through our various companies to bring advertisers online that we've received the calls from the advertising agencies. And we do our due diligence, check them out, and we say no. And
that's commendable.
We say no more than we say yes.
Mm. I can believe that of you, sir. Rob, what do you see as the future for broadcasting?
More digital talk radio. Digital radio is going to be the thing of the future. More satellites, where there's going to be a paid subscription, so the broadcasters will not have to advertise, because the only reason they advertise are to pay bills and to make a profit. So if they can do the same thing by offering a membership or a subscription, then it's a win-win situation. It's a win-win for the listener because they don't have to listen to commercials, and it's a win for the advertiser because they're making the money that they would have been making with the advertiser, and having a subscription or a pay-per-listen, pay-per-view is a lot easier for the broadcaster to do.
That makes a lot of sense. So the people that are getting the subscription are literally paying to not be controlled or blackmailed or any of that fun stuff, and get honest reporting because the reporters or the people that are running the station aren't beholden to the advertising. That's brilliant.
In most cases, but then you've got like CNN and other news media that are now on the satellite, so you listen to their garbage without the commercial content.
So it's still being used, isn't it?
I'm afraid so. So. But once again, the best advice I can give to anyone after being in this business 36 years, 26 years doing the X-Zone radio show, 14 years as the president and CEO of Relmar, is consumer beware. It comes down to that, Gwilda.
Really does, doesn't it? And back to attention and doing your own due diligence, right? Not just trust everything you're told.
Exactly.
There's no replacing personal responsibility, ultimately, is there?
There's nothing better that will ever replace honesty and integrity in the media.
I'm afraid it's kind of gone by the wayside. I'm sure really glad that you and those like you are in the world trying to turn the thing back around. Rob, thank you so much for being on the program, and thank you so much for what you're bringing to broadcasting.
Hey, it's my great pleasure, and I've always believed that if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And we here at the X-Zone Broadcast Network have shows like yours, Gwilda, on with us because you get honesty, you get integrity, you're informed, you're educated, and you're entertained.
Thank you so much, Rob. Our guest this hour has been Canadian broadcaster Rob McConnell. Rob's website, where you can listen to all sorts of wonderful programming, is xzbn.net. This has been The Science of Magic. For in-depth exploration of leading-edge subjects from numerous authorities and viewpoint, join our email family, thescienceofmagic.net. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge and comforted with love as we consciously co-create our world.
One people, one nation, searching through the night. One people, one nation.